Have you ever been just chilling out and thought to yourself, man, I wonder what the English language would have been like if the Normans had invaded England in 1066 AD, reducing the English people to second-class citizens and considerably changing the English language? No? Well, you're in luck, because other people have, and it's called Anglish. What is English, you ask? English is an alternate version of English where the Norman or French invasion had failed, leaving England free from French influence. It is essentially English with as little loan words as possible. The term English was coined by writer Paul Jennings in 1966 when he published some articles in a weekly magazine in commemoration of the 900th anniversary of the Norman invasion. The name stuck, and interestingly, English and more linguistically pure English literature in general began rising in popularity throughout the 20th century, with people like George Orwell and Charles Dickens emphasizing English root words over foreign ones. More recently, with the dawn of the internet communities have spawned around English. The interesting thing about English is that while it is definitely a little strange, it sounds very cool and, in part, weirdly familiar. Most new words are either revivals of dead English words, combination of common English words, or old English words adapted to the modern world. As such, we get words like loreless for ignorant, speechcraft for grammar or rhetoric, and inwit for conscience. Some are not that great. Luckily, there are thousands of words to choose from, many of which sound familiar or very cool. Take this excerpt from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. In the bosom of one of those roomy coves which brit the Hudson's eastern shore, at that great broadening of the sea named by the fern Dutch sailors the Tappan Zee, and where he always gluely shortened sail and besought the beeld of holy Nicholas when he fared, there lies a small cheap town or upland harbour, which by some is named Greensburg, but which is more often and more fittingly known by the name of Tarrytown. Compared to the original text, it is really similar, except for a few new words and different spellings of English, which is itself a place of disagreement in the community. Most are a fan of this style of English, but others take it a step further to make it more in line with Old English, using older words and more dramatic spellings. Take this translation of the fall of the House of Usher. Throughout the whole of a dull, dark, and loudless day in the fall of the year, when the clouds hung heavy and smothering in the heavens, I had been faring alone, on horseback, through a sundry dreary deal of land, and at length found myself, as the shades of the evening drew on, within sight of the unblithe House of Usher. This style of English is a debated topic in the community, and large spelling reforms don't really have that much support. Yet, if you understand which letters make which sound, it is decently easy to understand, and almost one-to-one while hearing. Also, this uses the forgotten letter thorn, which I appreciate. On the flip side of English, many common borrowed words must be replaced, like person, people, beef, or beautiful, now becoming fellow/lead, folk, cow, and fright. Luckily, many English words have survived as synonyms for the French version, such as the French liberty versus the English freedom. And even loan words that must be thrown away have multiple synonyms in English, such as beautiful being fright, sheen, hend, or lightful. Despite the changes, the sound and feel of English is still largely there as well. Now you might be thinking, okay, English is pretty interesting, but why English? Sure, it's a cool idea, but why do people like it enough to create newspapers, subreddits, even a book on elementary physics wholly in English? Besides the obvious answer of no one likes the French. To answer that, we need to go way back and look at the history of the English language. And it all starts with some big German boys crossing the railroads. Around 400 AD, various Germanic people, the Jutes, Angles, and Saxons, invaded England and began settling the area. It wasn't an invasion in the usual sense of the word, as there wasn't a whole lot of raiding and pillaging, but they did kick out those pesky Celtic people to the farther reaches of England, though. I'm sure that will never come up again. Over time, these tribes became kingdoms, and the Saxons were the strongest. They called the land Anglo-land, and the developing language English, or Old English. Fast forward to 600 AD, the Anglo-Saxons became Christianized. And they not only accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior, they also accepted the sweet new Latin alphabet from the Christian missionaries, and literature and art were thriving at this time too. But then came the Vikings. They invaded England around the late 18th century, and, in usual Viking fashion, raided and pillaged everything, basically destroying all the kingdoms except for one. Things were looking pretty grim for the Anglo-Saxons, but a cool guy, Alfred the Great, managed to repel the Vikings and sign a peace treaty, dividing England among them. The Vikings, also called the Norsemen, settled northwestern England, and over the next few centuries their language, Old Norse, eventually merged into English. In total, around 1,000 Old Norse words stuck around in English, many of which are very commonly used today, such as skull, bag, skin, or anger. But finally, we come to what this video is about, the Normans, or should I say, the French, or should I say, the Norsemen? Again? Yep, turns out that the Normans who spoke French were actually Norsemen who settled in France a few years prior, completely abandoning their own language. Anyway, so the Normans invaded Britain, overthrew the English rulers, and established themselves as the new guys in charge. And people wonder why people don't like the French. The result of this new leadership was that the English language was greatly Normanized. For over 300 years, French and Latin were the language used in government, religion, art, literature, and culture, while English became a second-class language, seen as a vulgar and uncivilized tongue, even though 95% of the people in England spoke it. In this time, over 10,000 French words were added to the English language, three-fourths of which survive to this day. By the end of the 14th century, Norman rule generally came to a close, for a number of reasons. The Normans, who Normanized the Anglo-Saxons, were themselves anglicized and merged into the population. But by this time, English had changed significantly. Thousands of words had been added, many sounds and spellings had changed, and most of what Old English was lost. Being a mainly spoken language of the peasantry for centuries, much of the grammatical complexity of Old English had been lost, such as gender nouns or the 11 inflections of adjectives. It is estimated that after the Vikings and Norman invasions, over 85% of Old English words were lost. English was a shadow of what it used to be. This is one of the many purposes of English. To imagine an English that maintained its original feel and did not lose so much. English is an attempt to recover what was lost, to restore English to what it once was, adapted to the modern world. There are other reasons, of course. More linguistically pure languages are easier to intrinsically understand, especially when you are familiar with the root words. Others see English as a fun thought experiment, and linguistic purism movements are not all that uncommon. And while those reasons are valid, to me, none are as compelling as the first. It's an ambitious undertaking, and one that won't be appreciated, even noticed by most, but a worthwhile endeavor anyway. And I hope that by at least watching this video, you are intrigued about the fascinating concept that is English, and have come to understand what makes it so cool.